For us to look at the week that has been. Now, this week, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission was and still is over the news. The future of the chair, Wafula Chebukati, now hangs in the balance after the resignation of 3 commissioners early this week, plus the presidential age limit debate coming back to life. It is a way to lock out the opposition leader Raila Odinga, or should he opt to vie in 2022? Welcome to A Week in Review, and just like I mentioned earlier, Jarvis Bigambo and James MamboLeo are the panelists that we have here this morning. Let's start with the IEBC, and I'll start with you, Jarvis, on what has been happening. And of course, the IEBC is an electoral body that has been under siege for a long time, and it's not just the only one. And I'd like us to look at it from a wide scope in terms of all the electoral commissions that we have had. They just seem to have the same lifespan and same way of dying out. Is this the same thing that's happening to IEBC?
Let me start, Michael, by saying that accountability is the currency of leadership. And every person in leadership position, especially public office, must be ready, must be willing to be held to account for their actions, commissions, omissions, whatsoever. And when you look at our politics, the process of our democracy, whether it's from the introduction of multi-party politics from the times of IPPG, whether you look at the ECK defunct, whether you look at IEBC, Interim Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, whether you look at the IEBC as it has been for the past 2 elections, there is one cycle that remains clear to us. One, that the IEBC as an institution has failed spectacularly and progressively to earn Kenyans' confidence. Secondly, it has been an institution that has been open to puppeteering, manipulation of the class, the political class in this country. The other thing that is very interesting, accolades, confidence has always been afforded to new commissioners, but immediately after an election, that confidence is always glaciated because of the manner in which an election has been conducted. Now, even if, like it has been said, whether by ODM or NASA, leaders, and even Jubilee through Senator Murkomen, etc., they are clear that they want Chebukati and company to get out of the way and have IEBC reconstituted. That will not salvage us from the agonies that any electoral body has always, afforded us as Kenyans. But the other thing is this. Will having new commissioners in office cure our mistrust and lack of confidence? The problem, I will tell you for a fact, is not IEBC. The problem necessarily is not just commissioners who can take office. The problem lies here. One, the interests of the political class who think that they have got the paternalistic right to occupy public office, and some that an election outcome should be predetermined. Secondly, also individuals or Kenyans who occupy such offices who are open to manipulation. Look at countries all over the world, whether it's Australia, whether it's the United Kingdom, whether it's the United States of America. Do we even know who those commissioners are in the run-up or even after an election? We never do. Because of the kind of integrity, confidence that individuals who occupy those offices have, and taking it as high honor to serve the country. We need men and women, as E.G. White puts it, who are not capable of being bought or sold at whatever price.
Okay. MamboLeo, your thoughts on what bedevils us as a country, basically with the electoral commissions?
The history of the election management body of this country has been really checkered. And be it way back from the headship of Zacchaeus Chesoni, then you came to Samuel Kivuitu, Isaac Hassan, and now the outgoing, I believe, chairman of the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati. It's critical to understand what really bedevils the IEBC. And I have, in my contemplation, come to the conclusion that there are 3 key problems that face the IEBC today, which if we don't deal with, then we are going to always be in trouble. First and foremost, as my colleague has put it, is the political interest. Politicians want to predetermine elections, and they do that through infiltrating the IEBC. They, at whatever level, members of parliament, at the presidential level, senatorial level, and so on and so forth, they are trying to create definitions of circumstances in the elections that will favor them in the outcome of those results. Number two, we have the business community, which is key on getting certain tenders in the cyclical cycles of the elections. Because you see, for instance, in the last election, we allocated about 50 billion Kenya shillings for the two elections. And there are people who are very keen on those kind of monies every time there is an election. And so they will do everything within their means to make sure folks who are going to play ball, once they get inside, are going to be...
decision makers.
The decision makers are going to be appointed to the IEBC. And then lastly, of course, there is the commissioners and officers of the IEBC itself, who at the point of applying for these jobs, other than that which they present, which is to come and serve the nation in the IEBC or in the election management body, they are eyeing something else. In fact, many of them would seem to be acting as if when they conduct an election, that is over. I mean, that is the mood, or that is the impression I'm getting, even from this outgoing commission, that they understood their mandate only to be to conduct this election and go away. Why? Because every 5 years, Mike, there is lots of billions of Kenya shillings that is allocated to the IEBC, and officials in the IEBC itself would always position themselves to catch a little of those billions, so that even if the IEBC dies thereafter, they do not care. Now, going forward, I think it's important for us to go back to 2007, or to the aftermath of the 2007 presidential election, in which we called Justice Kriegler here, and he chaired a committee, or he chaired a commission, which looked at our entire electoral process and suggested a few things which we need to take on board. For instance, the good judge said, you know, it's important to have a commission ready way before the election, at least 2 years before the election. If you look at 2013, we formed the commission just a few months to the election. In 2017, we had not learned any lesson yet. We formed the commission 1 year to the election. I think now that this commission has misbehaved, in my view, entirely, and as a result of their own misbehavior, they are forced to exit, it's important that as a country, and plus the fact that we now have a handshake, you know, we have Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga now working together in the interest of the nation. It's important that Parliament sits down and creates a very clear process of appointment of these commissioners and makes sure that the process that is followed thereafter is one in which all these interests we have mentioned are not going to infiltrate the process and get it wrong, because we now have about 4 and something years to the election. I am sure if we appointed a commission right now, it will be possible for us to have a commission which will sit properly in office to conduct elections in future as they should. You know, regarding this outgoing commission, it was appointed by church people, by religious people. I mean, if you look at the panel that selected all these guys, and I have said here many times, Mike, and in many other forums, that the church is one place in this country today I do not want to go anytime I need something really serious. You know why? Because the church has taken, they have also descended into the arena of dispute, and in fact today, if there is one group of people who should really sit down at a corner and re-examine themselves, and it is the leadership of the religious organizations that we have in this country. So we got it totally wrong by giving up our right to use a process that could have given us good commissioners and gave it to religious leaders. I think we should get a panel that constitutes very serious Kenyans who pass the integrity test under Chapter 6 of the Constitution to give us commissioners
and the
who can work for
question
this country.
is now what we're talking about. You've mentioned several things that have bedeviled us as a country and is obviously coming, they say that chickens have a way of coming home to roost. So the chicken are coming home to roost when we see the position we're in. The overlying problem in what you've described is impunity. which we seem not to be able to deal with. You've just brought in a very important part of society, and that is the church or the religious sector, who possibly are also have a part to play in this. Javas, how do we solve this? Because it's not just the IEBC. Go to the EACC, we still have a problem. Go to the legislature. We've had issues even with the judiciary. All forms of government. Look at the executive. There are issues of impunity in all these sectors. How do we solve this? Because then it is possibly what is causing us a problem, even the IBC. It's not just the IEBC.
It is the integrity question. And you are very charitable with opinion when you say that the chickens are coming home to roost. As I look at it, we even have no home where chicken can come home to roost.
There's no home.
There's no home completely. So even we should not even imagine chicken coming home to roost. The chicken have nowhere to go. The other thing is this. We as a people are deficient of leadership that's proper, that can stand the test of time, lack of integrity. And the other thing is that we as a community, we as a nation, have always had this feeble imagination that, for example, if we constitute a panel of religious people, they will select angels and archangels to man our election as commissioners. Elections are not a religious issue. It will never be all over the world.
The issue is the integrity, because when we put politicians there, we put anybody else. I think that what was envisaged by those who asked the religious leaders to put there is because we thought those would be the people with integrity.
Thank you for that. After the first Supreme Court ruling, after the 2017 election, August, one clear thing that the Supreme Court pronounced itself on was that the commission did not conduct the election within the dictates of the Constitution. And that tells you one thing, that the commission did not follow the law as it is written. The commission conducted the election as they wanted it, and at the beck and call, at the whims of other political masters, not according to the dictates of the Constitution. That there tells you that we need men and women who appreciate the place of the rule of law beyond integrity issues, the values of a nation. If you say that I am a Kenyan and I mean and I want the best for Kenya, and you're granted such an opportunity to be a commissioner, is it possible for you to transcend all interests and deliver such an election because of the kind of pride and trust that you've been given, that rests on your laps? That's what needs to be done. When former Commissioner Dr. Roslyn Akombe resigned, she was pelted with enough stones, epithets, etc., demonizing her by others. Others praised her. But now, by the resignation of these other three commissioners, it tells you one thing, that Akombe was right. If you look at that letter and the report that was delivered, that was submitted by Dr. Akombe, it brings out very clear issues of leadership, integrity, confidence issues, not just as a country towards the commission, but even within the commission itself. Now, when Wafula Chebukati, just prior to the repeat election, took the stage and spoke to the entire country and the world and said that I cannot guarantee a free and fair election. And then we, in our leniency, if you like it, or feeble imagination, said that, okay, because it must be conducted, and this chair of the commission, including the entire commission, tells us that he cannot conduct a free and fair election, free and fair, which means already the scales have been tilted. We let that fellow and the commission carry on the election, and then we start asking ourselves, why is it that we are finding ourselves in this kind of hole? We need to go back to the adage that when you are in a hole, stop digging. So right now, even Wafula Chebukati, by such pronouncement, and by the pronouncements of the other commissioners, from Dr. Akombe to these other three that have resigned, Wafula Chebukati should expeditiously leave office by the insufficiency of the currency of confidence, the lack of legitimacy in his person, by other commissions, etc.
Okay.
And when we move forward to reconstitute the commission, let us ask ourselves very fundamental questions.
All right.
Is it just a question of filling or reconstituting the commission? And we are going to have possibly a referendum. We are going to have issues of boundaries re-adjudication, we are going to have another election in 2022. These are very important milestones in our nation's history and democratic practice.
All right, James MamboLeo, some of the things that Javas is talking about here, go back and reflect on the core values that we have as individuals.
Yes.
Because it's not that we don't have laws.
Yes.
It's not that we do not have institutions in place that should give us direction on how things should be run.
Yes.
Looking at the elections, there's definitely rules, regulations, and one of the things that made the elections nullified in 2017, the August 8th elections, was the fact that they were not free, fair, or verifiable. This goes to the core of our values.
Absolutely.
There was a suggestion that possibly what we need is foreigners, because as Kenyans we failed. Do you agree with that suggestion? Maybe we need foreigners as commissioners.
It is very drastic to get commissioners to conduct our elections.
But we have failed.
It would be very shameful. However, sometimes you cannot blame some people for thinking that that probably is going to be the solution. However, this is what I think is the position. The outgoing commissioners knew right from the very beginning that they were not contracted to come and run the IEBC in the interest of the nation, that they had been picked by certain interests to come and represent those interests within the commission. Now, I do not want to be the person that will sanctify one Dr. Rosalyn Akombe. I do not want to sanctify any of those commissioners, because let me tell you the way I have understood these commissioners to understand their roles as they perform them. These commissioners, representing the interests that I have just mentioned, came to the commission knowing that their only responsibility was to create trouble, was to make sure nothing works, and then in turn expect that the chairman was supposed to play some miracle and deal with their problems, okay? They saw the chairman as this man for whom you should always create trouble, and it is the responsibility of that chairman to make sure the commission is working. Now, on the other hand, the chairman came to the commission expecting to run roughshod over every commissioner and expect that somehow there's going to be teamwork and so on and so forth for the commission to run. Mm-hmm. There is not a single discussion within the commission that was that led to any conclusion by consensus. There is not a single thing that did not have to go on a vote. And in most cases, the commissioners were known in the direction in which they could always vote, okay? So this is, I think, what is important, Mike. We have to bite the bullet and say, you know, Kenya as a corporate has a direction that it wants to move to, and somehow we have not gotten it right for so long, and it's important for us to, as he has said, to stop digging and start getting out of this hole. But when we advertise, because as you know, right now, even if Chebukati left office, or even if the remaining two commissioners left office, we do not have a law that will assist us in the appointment of new commissioners. When Parliament starts taking its job seriously and sits down and creates the law by which the new chairman and the commissioners are going to be appointed, this is what I'm going to ask of all Kenyans who will express intentions to serve in the commission of the IEBC. Please, first and foremost, don't look at this as just any other job for which you're going to get a salary. Don't look at this as your only chance to get into the billionaire class by going to do deals with tenderpreneurs and so on and so forth. And then, most importantly, when we get a new commission, let that new commission have the balls to sit down and look at the entire secretariat of the IEBC and say, do these men and women fit the bill for the purpose for which they have been hired? And I will tell you, without fear of favor, that most of the directors sitting in the secretariat, I'm saying this, and I know, I hope Chiloba will be living like yesterday. You know, most of the other directors sitting in the secretariat have absolutely no role to play there, except to drag the IEBC down. They should have left also like yesterday, so that we constitute a secretariat which has the capacity and the goodwill to perform the task that is ahead of them, and then we reconstitute the commission so as to have people of integrity who can run elections. Because, you know, Mike, the reason why you see all these problems about IEBC being overhauled all the time is because the political players cannot trust. You know, like, for instance, if I used you to steal elections yesterday, I'm not going to be so sure that you're going to assist me steal next time, because probably the highest bidder is not going to be me in the next election.
Somebody else.
So it's important that that integrity question be dealt with.
Okay.
We cannot replace integrity with technology.
All right, and well, the IEBC continues to be a subject that I'm sure we're going to wait with bated breath to see what's going to happen. Will Wafula Chebukati resign? Will he remain in office? That remains to be seen. But I want us to look at other things. And over the weekend, Kenneth Matiba, an icon of Kenya's second liberation in the 1990s, died. Matiba was a great crusader for Kenya's multi-party democracy. He was detained without trial, and today glowing tributes continue to stream from all walks of life, with many remembering him as a statesman. And, well, let me bring it to you. Maybe glowing tributes are coming in now, but of course, we seem to praise the heroes when they're dead. And somebody was suggesting that maybe we should have a Malema challenge, you know, even for Matiba. Mama, they're here, what do we do with them? But anyway, looking at multi-party democracy, Javas, and expanding that conversation as to whether he died a disappointed man.
Well, Matiba unfortunately died long ago. And we've just been waiting to have him buried, unfortunately. It breaks my heart, Michael, to see politician after politician falling over themselves, shedding tears like the Brahmaputra in Spain, to try and mourn the Honorable Matiba. Yet when he was alive, one, he was not celebrated. It is a pity that even some are saying that a certain university should be named after him when he's dead. Why couldn't they say this when he was alive? The other thing is this. When he was alive, why couldn't we see politicians visiting him and supporting him? Look at what the widow is talking about. They have been deserted from the time he left prison. That they have been in and out of hospital as though they work there. A frustrated family, a frustrated life. This is an individual who took to the stage, sacrificed so much to try and take our democracy forward. The ideals that Matiba stood for today still remain unmet. And one disappointing thing is that our leaders, and I've heard even one of the leaders say that whatever the court had ruled that should be given to him now should be expeditiously given to him when he's now dead. Does the Honorable Matiba need that money? Right now, does even the wife need that money? Let us, I think, as a nation, be very sincere with ourselves. The proper time to celebrate someone is when he or she is alive. Whether Michael is a distinguished person, let me tell Michael when he's here, when he can appreciate that Javas is appreciating me. Whether it is a particular writer, a particular leader, etc. But we know very well, as it's written even in Scripture, that a dead man should only be given the best of accolades. It is true. But as to where he is and his soul, as we wish him even the best in his family, I think we have done the Honorable Matiba the greatest injustice that a human being can do to another.
James MamboLeo?
Mike, this happens to everyone that has made some contribution. I think the truth of the matter is sometimes as a nation we do not even understand really what we stand for. What do I remember Kenneth Matiba for? I think this is one of the best presidents that we never had. I think in the Africanization of the Kenyan economy after independence, Matiba is one of those early Kenyan Africans who made a big contribution in creating enterprise, you know, the African style, in taking up business and at least showing the rest of us Kenyans that, you know, Kenyans could also create Kenyan, indigenous Kenyan-made enterprises which could actually succeed. He created enterprise in education, he created enterprise in industry, and so on and so forth. His schools are very well known, the Hillcrest schools and so on, which I'm told were later taken away from him because of financial problems and so on and so forth. So what is it that we can learn from the Matiba's life and the way he's been treated? I think the Kenyan memory needs to improve. I think this is why a lot of people would rather die in office, because in most cases, if you get out here 1 week, Kenyans will already have forgotten you. So it's important that when you have someone of the ilk of Kenneth Matiba, I mean, if finally, when he dies, you're going to be the ones bereaving more than the bereaved, then you would rather do something for this man when he's alive. Kibaki, who comes from his backyard, was president for 10 years. Uhuru is from his own backyard. He's been president going now to 6 years. I think if anybody else would not have remembered these people, at least these guys would have remembered. However, it's not too late. I think government should start creating a policy on how to deal with some of these questions. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we need to have some guiding policy on how to deal with some of these questions. Probably that policy is lacking. Somebody needs to take up this, instead of government continuously converting itself into a funeral committee. Every time a prominent son or daughter of the soil dies, the government can do something in advance to make the life of these people a little bit more livable. But then finally, as I think, as we mourn him, we must remember the good things that he stood for. Every time somebody dies, the question we need to ask ourselves is, if I passed my whole life through a memory of the way he lived his life, would I be making a contribution to the betterment of this nation? Would I want to leave this nation better than I left it? And I think it would really do us a lot of good if we can be better citizens and make a contribution to the well-being of our
heroes and our nation. And I hope our leaders are listening, and hopefully something can be done, because it seems we seem in life generally, not just in Kenya, to mourn people when they're dead, but when they're alive and they've made a reasonable contribution, we seem to forget them. Lastly, before we finish, we have the devolution conference coming up on Monday, starting on Monday, and maybe just to get your parting shots, but also your thoughts on what really should be the point of focus on the devolution conference, not just another flowery and event where we have governors coming together to show us what they have not done.
Well, I'll be taking part in the conference. I'll be participating in it next week in Kakamega. One thing is that we've had various conferences from 2014. And even after every devolution conference, we've had report after report churned out. Lots of them are gathering dust on various shelves in this country. Question is, well, as we know that the devolution itself is the vertebral column, the backbone of our Constitution of Kenya 2010, when we have all these devolution conferences, what is it that happens after we've held such a conference? Are there institutional follow-up mechanisms that follow the ideas and all the nuances, etc., that come from such kind of conferences? Whether it was Meru, whether it was Kwale, now it has been Kakamega, etc., it was in Kisumu, etc. Now look at it this way. We as a nation need to rise to the higher ground and ask ourselves, thus far, when we go to this kind of conferences, beyond the plenary sessions, the breakaway sessions, and very good discussions always take place there. Right now, even the youth are now being involved in matters, discussions of devolution. But I think beyond the conferences, it is important for us to look at it from the county level and national level, how we can pick up some of the critical ideas, suggestions that came out of a devolution conference and see how to make devolution even better. Look, even up to now, counties are still, making noise about insufficient funds, improper availability or channeling of those funds by Treasury on time. The Auditor General has talked about the misappropriation of funds, at county level, county governments and national level. Look, and we know very well that misappropriation is the opium of the corrupt. We need to find ourselves now asking difficult questions. What must we do better when we go to devolution conferences so that they don't just become talk shops, but they become avenues for rising to the higher ground of making devolution the best thing that ever happened in governance now moving forward.
All right, your parting shot, James MamboLeo, and possibly your expectation of the devolution conference.
90% of the governors that will come to that devolution conference will come in, they will see nothing, they will hear nothing, they will walk away with nothing. It is just a yearly talk show.
That's a harsh...
Where people come and discuss good things. But let me tell you, our governors just simply need to go back and read the history that led to the devolution of these units that we call counties. They need to understand why they were created in the first place. Counties were not created so that governors could have an opportunity to become billionaires, so that they could also have a group of cronies, you know, make some money. Counties were created so that we could holistically take enterprise or facilitate government down there at the local level for the improvement of the lives of the people of those counties. So let all governors go to this devolution conference knowing many nice things are going to be discussed there. Benchmarking has been done. Great professionals like my brother here have traveled far and wide and collected good information for these people, but they're not going to listen to any of it. They need to come there repentant, and they need to come there having made up their minds that this time round, having been made governors for their respective counties, they are willing to go and live up to the creed for which those counties were created. That is where it needs to start. If that doesn't happen, believe me, money is going to be spent on that conference. People will get per diems, people will get out of those conferences, and we will be looking forward to the next conference.
Well, gentlemen, we'll have to wind up right there because of time. Jarvis Bigambo and James MamboLeo, thank you for joining us this morning to review the week that has been. And shortly, we're going to be getting into entertainment, and that's all coming up right here. But if I can just quickly ask Wayne and Tash to just come on set. These are James MamboLeo's child and niece, I believe. And I know they just came to see. It's civic education on how our studio works. For them to just sit there and have a moment which I'm sure they'll remember for the rest of their lives on national TV. Yeah, I think they're okay there. So they're not microphones, so I can't talk to them. But there you go. Thank you, James MamboLeo, for bringing them along for civic education. And that's how it feels